In 1976, the United States was observing its bicentennial, celebrating all things stars and stripes. The stars aligned, and the Bavarian Soccer Club earned its first star as National Amateur Cup champion. This is the story that would culminate in the final with the Pabst Blue Ribbon Bavarians against Trenton Extension. On July 16, 1929, 14 immigrants in Milwaukee from the German state of Bavaria decided to form their own club. On July 29th, they formally established Fußballklub Bayern. The club began to have monthly meetings, elected officers, and established a football team. That fall, FC Bayern fielded a team in Milwaukee's Municipal A Division, the second tier of the city's 3 leagues. Later that year, new members joined, and the very first FC Bayern team claimed the Municipal A Division title. In 1930, the squad moved up to the Municipal AA Division, where they were once again champions. They then moved up to the State League and won their first state title in 1935. In the 1930s, FC Bayern began competing in national competitions, the National Challenge Cup and the National Amateur Cup. However, success was difficult to come by. Time and time again, their national aspirations were stymied by teams from Chicago and St. Louis. In 1951, the Wisconsin State League was reestablished, and FC Bayern fielded 2 teams in the league, FC Bayern No. 1 and FC Bayern No. 2. In 1952, FC Bayern claimed the State League title and the inaugural Governor Kohler Cup. In 1956, FC Bayern formally changed its name to the Bavarian Soccer Club. In 1964, Pabst Brewing became the sponsor of the team, which was rechristened the Pabst Blue Ribbon Bavarians.
After being in the North American Soccer League with the Chicago Mustangs for a little bit, and that league floundering, I came back to Bavarians, and now I was one of the veteran guys, right? So early 70s, and so it was a couple of other guys tried it, and somehow they got to me, and then I wasn't the oldest guy on the team, and but nevertheless. Guys like Richard Schweinert and Willie Wessels, and we were comrades, and now they accepted me as being the more equal among equals, and I started to run practice because I had gotten a few things in terms of experience playing at maybe a little higher level and all of that. So it just made sense that my voice was out there a little more often than other people. I had also earned my B license, coaching license in 73, my A license in 74, got to interact with some folks from around the country, and felt that we were ready to do this, and I felt more confident in what I was doing or should have been doing as the leader of the group. John Spielman was in the 70s. He was the best goalkeeper in Wisconsin. He had passed up Joe Bourne, who was our goalkeeper in the 60s. In the early 70s, just about the time I came back from Chicago, I think they were still contending, how should we say, or competing uh, for for the top job in our club. And he was a good athlete. He was extremely quick, courageous, uh, could make the spectacular save, and also was a good distributor of the ball, right? Especially, I think goalkeeper in that day and age more often than not would kick the ball. John was a very good thrower of the ball, and uh, it, it 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 seems to me that Bavarians, we were always extremely, how should we say, conscious about the counter. And so he was a playmaker when he had the ball in his hands, and we could go short and we could go long, and he was a key in that. So he was the best goalkeeper in the state, and had also nationally, he had been on the youth national team in the 60s and all of that. Just uh, we were solid there. Yes. Joe Orr, when I came back in the early 70s, and we were playing 4-2-4, and Joe Orr and Willie Wessels were playing the dual spearheads. They were the center forwards. Early 70s, he was probably our leading scorer. At this point, he was playing either back, right back, left back, and we were matchup concerned from week to week, and he could just handle that, and very very aggressive, very solid. Uh, wasn't going to win too many Olympic medals in the sprint, but nevertheless, and a smart soccer player, right? Could do it all, and strong psychologically. He would win his duels in that respect also. Mark Hagan was one of those young guys that we developed, and just a good technician, and could and did play, and probably would have preferred to play midfield, but he could play either wing back, both footed, mostly right, but could handle either side, and he was a good soccer player. He was not, good, well developed young wide defender. Tony Kreidel, played stopper for us on that team. But when he first came into the team, he wanted to play midfield. He, like most young players, and Tony wanted to be a center forward, and he played some right wing and all of that. But uh, in '76, we needed his physicality, his aggressiveness, but just as he was a young player, but he played savvy, right? So he could handle the fast center forward, and he could handle the powerful center forward, and he did that for us. Fritz Weiler was on and off the field. He was just he tried to make everybody else look good, and he worked. He worked. He was an ideal outside halfback who would show up in both boxes. Uh, could thump the ball. All three of our midfielders could shoot from distance, and he could do that. But mainly, it was just as he passed up many of our players going forward, and then again coming back. He just and he was just a pleasure to play with. He was a caring human being, and just a caring teammate. Bob Spielman I brought up Glenn Ward and him when they were about 17, 18 to the first team in the early 70s. And Bob Spielman played left wing. Glenn Ward played right wing. Uh, he wanted to play center forward, and he had he had a thunderous left foot, and good in the air and all of this. But for this team, we needed him at midfield as the the attacking midfielder, and he did that. Maybe not always with a smile on his face, but certainly put a smile on the rest of our faces because he would help us win games. So good player. Beyond his years in terms of understanding the game. And then, as you know, later on, you're coach and still coaching at the Bavarian Soccer Club, student of the game. Nothing but positives when I think of him. He was tall and gangly a little bit, and the Germans had a term, Lulach. He thought initially that the nickname was totally complimentary. I think later on he decided that he didn't want to hear it all that often. So, but we're still friends to this day, so it's good. Glenn Ward was an extremely gifted player, and once again versatile. Played in '75. He became our center forward. Initially, he was our right winger. He was just somebody who could run fast for a long time. And like Fritz, they were just two guys, put some odometers in their pockets, and you could see the miles that they put in. And good in the air, and totally a yes, sir kind of guy. You ask Glenn to do anything on the field for the team, and he would say, sure. He'd never ask why. He'd never ask how come me. He just did it, and he had a great he had a substantial contribution in that final because of things that he needed to do for us offensively, but also defensively. Milan Misuta was probably the ultimate technician on our field, on our team, and a veteran in his 30s already. As I said, just technically clean. You could give him any ball and he'd clean it up. And he prided himself and enjoyed making the short pass, making the guys around him look better by giving him the appropriate pass and the appropriate service. He actually was a right winger, but his interpretation was he really played it at midfield, which was okay. It gave more room to the next two guys we're going to talk about, and it also made sure that we wouldn't be outnumbered at midfield when we came up against people who probably were organized a little differently than we were. And just a guy who loved the game, a student of the game, and to his passing day was a coach in his 70s. Just a pleasure to play with. Jerry Zuba was on that team. He was our the Richie Schweinert of the '60s. He could fly. He could absolutely fly. And we put him out on the left side because then he could cut in on his right foot and get shots away and beat people inside and out and all of that. And sometimes he needed a few more chances than other folks to score his goal. But hey, he got his chances. Just a good athlete. Technically, he could do more than a few things, and a pleasure to be around. Well, Herbie was the guy who we added from '75 to '76, and he was raised at Eintracht Braunschweig, which was a well-known German club at that time, and Herbie he wanted to play the 10. right? He wanted to be the attacking midfielder, but we needed him as a center forward. And what Herbie did that year and did for a decade or two after that, Herbie could create his own shot. He could also finish your service, and even if the service wasn't optimal, he would find a way. He was a goal scorer, and he was a competitor. Herbie was he was the man of the year because he gave us a goal guarantee just about every game. Well, Richie was the goal scoring hero in the whole 60s. I mean, he would, I don't know if he averaged 2 goals a game, but it seemed like more for that whole decade of the 60s. And he had sort of retired by 76, but still, would get his exercise in the second team on Sundays, and we needed it now and then. And he was the oldest guy in the team, 37 by now, 38. He could run with all of us, and he could run. Forget about me, but he could run with all the young guys. And so Richie was mostly a right winger in his goal scoring days, but he had made the transition and would make the transition for us and would help us out now and then. Probably didn't play many of the games leading up to this one, but we needed him in the second half to handle, arguably their fastest player. Wally, unfortunately, he was hurt much of that season, and it seemed to be one thing or the other. More often than not, I think he would have an injury and then be so anxious to come back that then something would follow. Wally was an extremely talented player. Once again, versatile. He was on the '72 Olympic team, and he played right back there. But growing up at the Bavarian Soccer Club, he was a center forward more often than not. I liked him at right back, and I put him there much to his chagrin. And you'd never have to tell him to join the attack. Sometimes you would have to remind him that maybe he could also join us in defense, but he would, and he would do it quickly. Pleasure of a guy. To this day, we're good friends, and I enjoy him. It's sad for me that he couldn't participate in that because he was well deserving of us getting there. Doug Strong was a backup player, didn't play that much, but could play at wing back, could play at midfield, would help us out in league games, and once again, even the versatility was something that we valued, and in the locker room, off the field, made substantial contributions as well. Bernie was a young guy raised in our youth system for the most part. Was blessed. Spent some time with the youth national team where he played, I think, as a sweeper more often than not, but loved to play further up the field also. So Bernie could come in, help us out at midfield, and especially in an attacking way. He could come and be a second forward or a wide attacker, and just a good, talented young man that would do what is necessary on a given day.
Trenton Extension team, Trenton Extension Bar. Actually, it was the longest bar, physically speaking, in New Jersey. And Frank Razimovich, who was Timmy Murphy, one of the players, it was his grandfather, and he loved the game. It was in a Polish section of Trenton. He was the sponsor of the Trenton Extension. I grew up in Trenton, New Jersey. At that time, Mercer County was soccer was a hotbed between Mercer County and then North Jersey, Kearney, Harrison, Newark had a lot of Portuguese players. So we had this great soccer tradition from about the 1920s. A lot of English and Scottish individuals that come over and were working in the factories. So growing up, it was a real tradition. When I was 16 years old, I went to a soccer camp at Rider University, and Manfred Schellscheit was the head instructor, and Charles Ping Pong Ferruto was like the second in command. And that's kind of when the light bulb went off what this beautiful game was all about. And then I fell in love with soccer. That was all I played, and I was obsessed with it. I ended up going Glenn Mooch Meyernick, who played for your dad. He went to Harwick, and I wanted to go to Harwick. So I went to Harwick, and a large group of the Trenton Extension players were from Harwick and Penn State, the colleges. It just, this Charles Ping Pong Ferruto, he probably had the same role that your dad had with the club, like a player coach. And with all this experience, he had played in the old ASL and the German American League, which were the top leagues on the East Coast, with a lot of professional players, semi-pros. A lot of foreign teams came over. He played against Liverpool and Wolverhampton Wanderers and different teams. So he became my mentor. And between my senior year in high school through my senior year in college, in the summers, Monday through Friday, we would train ping pong me from like 10 o'clock to 3:30 every day for hours on end. And he was a stickler for, mastering the ball and building your brain and vision and thinking ahead and all that. So I was very fortunate that I had him take me under his wing. Starting up front, Johnny Marsden played on the right wing. He was very fast, clever dribbler, good finisher, good he's setting players up. He played on the right wing. He had gone to Penn State. Art Napolitano was our center forward. Artie was, although he wasn't real tall, he was very good in the air, good timing. He was good finisher. He showed well for the ball if you were playing balls to get balls back. He went to Hartwick College, my teammate and roommate. On the left side up front was Richie Reese, who also went to Penn State. I would describe him kind of like same as Johnny Marsden. He was shorter, kind of had like a messy build and had that left foot. Very good at running at players and creating chances and scoring goals. In the midfield, on the right side of the midfield, was Barry Pelletieri. He was my high school teammate, a year ahead of me. He was the captain of Rider College. Good, solid, basic, fundamental skills, a very intelligent player. I played in central midfield, which I did for Trenton Extension and for Hartwick College. So basically, it was my responsibility to control the tempo of the game and for us to keep possession of the ball. On the left side was Timmy Murphy, who went to Davidson Elkins. He grew up with Moochie Marnick and Lawrence. They won 3 state championships. Very good player, good on the ball, very good off the ball, great work rate, terrific energy and fight. On the right back, we had Bobby Rostron. He was one of the few older players. Bobby was probably early 30s. Was in the Marines, came back. Actually, my first game as a guest for Trenton Extension, I was like 16 years old. Bobby blew his knee out, and I don't think he was ever quite the same as he was. Still very good, solid player. Our center back was Matt Barr, son of Walt Barr. He also kicked field goals for Penn State and the Steelers. Matt was the stopper back. Matt was very strong in the tackle, could strike a ball really hard. Had more defensive responsibilities than anything else, because he played behind me and in front of Mooch. So that's the type of player we needed there. On the left side was Jimmy McEwen, who was a very good player. I grew up with him in junior ball. He also went to Rider College, good, hard tackler, tough, no nonsense type of guy. Joey Hankins was our goalie. He went to Mercer County Community College, then Trenton State College. Good, solid keeper. We didn't have a lot of subs. Charles Ping Pong Ferruta, who was, like I said, he had the role of your dad, like a player coach. Sometimes he would play, but he was, his late 30s then. Just great soccer mind. we kind of refer to ping pong as one of the greatest soccer coaches that no one ever knows other than in the area, because he had that soccer mind. And Denny Knievy, who I grew up with and got introduced me to soccer, he played for Bridgeport University. He was a striker, could play anywhere up front. And Kevin Costello, who went to Penn State, he was a utility guy. He could play anywhere on the field and was really athletic and hard as you could be. I'm sorry, I'm leaving out our best player. Glenn Mooch-Meineck was our sweeper, who, like I said, I feel was maybe the best player amateur player in the country at that time, and was teammates with one of your players, Glenn Ward, I think at the Pan Am Games and the Olympic trials. Mm-hmm. So that was our team.
Then, the 1975 season, as the championship booklet declared, had to be ranked as one of the best ever enjoyed by the Bavarian Soccer Club. In 55 games, 44 wins, 6 ties, and 5 losses. While it declared that the highlight of the season was the winning of the Wisconsin State League Outdoor Championship, it was the claiming of the Wisconsin Amateur Cup title that would lead to even greater glory. It would lead to the 1976 National Amateur Cup Championship.
Well, yeah, but that was pretty much the norm for us in the 60s and the 70s. We expected to be successful in the Wisconsin landscape, and we were once again. But I think in the back of my mind, at 75, how should we say, there was a bad taste in at least in my mouth, and I think some of the other veterans, that we didn't get past Chicago and St. Louis and see what else was out there in terms of competition. So, I don't know whether I started it at that time, but one of my favorite words was doable. I felt it was doable that we could make an impact and do something that maybe no one else, as it turns out, no one else in Wisconsin had done up to that time.
I just looking back at the players we had on that team. I mean, we had to be successful because the players on that team not only were good players on the field, but we were good friends off the field as well. And the camaraderie there, I think it was just so good. I mean, and then you had people willing to play for each other. I think that was very evident. I mean, our training sessions were fierce. I mean, if you ever took a ball away from Herbie Schreiner, you better get rid of it really quick because he'd knock you one. And it was always great to play against him. And I always tried to put myself against him in training to make me a better player. But you had different personalities. You had different likes and differences on the field. I mean, Glenn Ward, obviously, he was quick, was an unbelievable player. Jerry Zuba, Joe Orr's leadership, Wally Ziaya, Mark Hagan. I mean, Milan Masuta, your dad. I mean, Tony Kreidel. I mean, God, that's just this unbelievable force of soccer intelligence, and it was just great memories about it.
Sort of felt that maybe it is time to make a little bit of an inroad on the national scene. I had also earned my B license, coaching license in 73, my A license in 74. Got to interact with some folks from around the country, and felt that we were ready to do this, and I felt more confident in what I was doing or should have been doing as the leader of the group. We had always, from the time that youth soccer started in Wisconsin, Gene Edwards was the key guy in getting that going. We had good youth teams, and we had quite a few of our players, so to speak, the ones that were developed in our club on that 76 team. So it just was, it was a nice mix of younger and older and experienced and all of that players. And we felt more things would be doable.
That result, by the way, was a great result because the Croatian Eagles had some great teams. And for us to beat them 5-0, and I knew some of the kids who played on that Croatian Eagles team because they went to Parkside with me. When you look at the guys from the old country who played on that team, they were a tough team to play against. Mm-hmm. But I think that was most probably the foundation of us going on to win the National Cup, is because you say, well, within it, we just won 5-0. You know, hey, let's bring on the next ones.
It was important. It's always important to be the top dog in your neighborhood, right? And but we knew that we had to do it, and it wasn't. We never took anybody for granted, but it was. We expected that of ourselves, right? And I don't recall that game against Croatian Eagles. I don't recall the at least 2 league games that we had against them that year. And probably met them once or twice or 3 times in referee cups and other tournaments and all of that.
The Croatian Eagles weren't that good that time.
Trenton Italians, they were like 2-time defending New Jersey State Cup champs. They had a lot of foreign players. They had this Nando Vecchio who had played, supposedly for Boca Juniors. I can't really verify if he got in the first team a lot or not, but he was a fantastic player. Well, it just so happened that we ended up, our first game in the Amateur Cup to get through New Jersey was against them. They were our rivals. And at Hartwick College, I lived with Glenn Muccimarn and Art Napolitano, who was our striker for Hartwick and Extension. And I went back, I said, I'm going to go home on Friday. And those guys were going to go home on Saturday for the game on Sunday, because it was like a 4-hour ride. Well, on Saturday, there was this snowstorm out of the blue, and Mooch and Artie couldn't even get out of Oneonta. So our first game, we played against Trent Extension without 2 of our best players at Lincoln Field, a very vociferous crowd, pro Trenton Italians. And we ended up beating them. Actually, it was the first game we brought. We had signed some players from Penn State, Matt Barr, Richie Reese, and Johnny Marsden. And that was our first game. We really didn't play in a league. We had players from Hartwick, Penn State, some local guys, Timmy Murphy, and Davis and Elkins, and we would just, drive into Mercer County, Trenton for those games. So the first game was our hardest game leading up to you guys. And like I say, without 2 of our best players, and, Glenn Muccimarnik was one of, if not, the best amateur player, I think, in the country at that time. And we beat them 2-0. And that's how we got started on our run to get to you guys.
Those are always good. When you beat Sport Club back then were always good.
Yeah, I got headlines. I know that I didn't, I scored plenty of goals. I know Glenn and Herbie, I think, probably scored more than anybody. I think, I don't know exactly. I never used to, there was never a competition. Your dad, I don't think ever kept track of that. Maybe he did behind the scenes, but it was never that important to any of us on the team who scored the goals. It was a team effort. It just came down to let's win.
And, Sport Club on any day can beat anybody, or could have beat anybody in the league. And they were a difficult team to play against, especially on their field. And I can remember most of the games that we played against them were tough games. Not only tough physically, but tough mentally, because there was a lot of clashes of players' personalities going on in those games, right? But yeah, that once you do see that, then you say, "Whoa, we're doing all right here. Let's see how far we can go."
and over the years, Sport Club probably, Sport Club and Brewers gave us probably even more difficulty than Croatians and the Serbs. Sport Club gave us a lot of trouble over the years, and they were the underdog, and they thrived on that. So maybe it had something to do with German American Club and German American Club with the Brewers as well. That they would bring a lot to the table whenever they faced us.
I don't know how much celebration they would have done if they would have beat us at that time, you know, but it hardly happened.
Yeah, you know, it was a rather easy game. I had broken my foot, so the next couple games I didn't play. But it was it was a pretty easy game. We beat them 5-0 in Woodbridge.
That was the final. I don't know how they got in the final, but and it's just surprising that I'm sure Mario Carini played on there, Lenny Lanza, all those guys, but and they were pretty good. So we must have had a great showing that day.
Yeah. I remember Verdi, and Verdi was never a very good team.
Yeah, the other, like Polonia and Brewers weren't in it because they had professional players on the team. That's why they went to the Open Cup. They didn't come into the Amateur Cup. See, Bavarians, we were all amateurs. We got a meal after the game. We were at the best. The buffets were outstanding.
Well, once the ball starts rolling, and Zuba had like 3 or 4 or something, and it was just I think we got rolling, and they stopped trying. So combination. So
Verdi, a lot of great players on that team. I think in totality, they never had a great team. I don't think they were committed to training like we were. And on any given day, they could give you a good game, but on any given day, you could also just, beat the heck out of them. And on that particular day, we did.
And then there weren't a lot of teams that entered the Amateur Cup in the New Jersey portion. So the next game was actually the final to get out of New Jersey. And it was against Hoboken. And you know what? I do not remember the final score. I know it was a rather easy game, but I can't find. I looked everywhere for the final score. I'm like, that one, it drove me nuts. I reached out to a couple of my teammates, and they had no recollection either of that final score.
I think at that time, Minnesota wasn't, anything in particular. I think they were just coming on as a state, and clubs in there. And
yeah, that was another great win for us. St. Paul or Minnesota was not known for their soccer, and we knew a couple of players played on that team. We knew that the St. Paul teams weren't great, and I think they also had difficulty putting teams together to travel. I think there was a couple of years where they forfeited to us because they couldn't put a team together to come down and play us. And I think it was because they knew they were going to get waxed by us. So, easy game.
Yeah, well, Minnesota over the years, we expected to win those, and almost always we did. So we were just trying to fine tune things, and integrate Herbie, because we did move some people around, and I'm sure some people weren't overly happy, but they put those feelings aside because only one guy can play center forward, and he wasn't overly happy about playing center forward, but just play up there somewhere, But we were starting. I think we were starting to feel it. That we could do some things.
Yeah, we beat them high, right? I don't know. I don't remember the score, but I think it was like 6-1 or 7-1. That was an easy game.
Yes, who had won the Amateur Cup, I believe, in I think 73 and 74. Walter Chisowitz, those tie-ins, national team coach. They had a really talented team, and we beat them rather easily, 2-0. And I think after we beat them, we knew our team actually we had something special, because, like I said, a lot of the players we never practiced together. We just show up for the game, and we brought in the guys from Penn State, so we had like 3 new players, and it just kind of clicked. It was kind of an easy fit, and then after the Inter game, we kind of thought we had something special.
I think that was at Hanson Park, and that Hanson Park at that time was not field turf; it was AstroTurf. It was very, very hard. So, and Maroons at the time were a really good team. So that was a good win, and Herbert really put on a display in that game.
The Chicago spectators were kind of wild that day. I think there were some complications out there. But I remember that's where Richard and I really hooked up together. I think I had 3 goals, and he had 3 assists.
Chicago was a stumbling block for us in any games. Even when we'd go down and play tournaments, we'd play friendlies with them. The Chicago teams would invariably beat us. And I'm talking about the teams like the Chicago Schwaben, the Chicago Kickers, the Maroons, the Green Vice. They were all the top teams. Then you had the Polish team, Whistler. We couldn't get through Chicago. But slowly but surely, we developed this team that developed a confidence where we started beating the Chicago teams. And so it was no surprise that we beat the Maroons, because we'd most probably already been beating the Schwaben and the Kickers, and they were the 2 top teams at the time down there. And so we had a confidence that they weren't a stumbling block anymore.
Yeah, the Maroons, Chicago Maroons, those are the Italians. Yeah, but in Chicago more so than in Milwaukee, and obviously things have changed now. But there were players, how should we say, ethnically mixing more and all of this. The Kickers and the Schwabens as well. They were more. It wasn't a German social club or an Italian social club anymore. It was a soccer club, and things were changing a little bit. And so can't tell you much about the Maroon game, but I think the surprise was that it was the Maroons, not the Kickers or the Schwaben that were coming out of Illinois. And so we got some information on it. I don't remember the game to any great extent. I think we had a lesser first half, and then scored 4 in the second. Is that the one? Yeah. But it was we were always, how should we say, mindful. We wanted to be mindful of our opponents, but we were more concerned about ourselves. And so minimize the surprises, and be sure that you surprise the other guy. And I don't recall that game. And who scored the goals? You got it there?
Says Herbert had a hat trick, and I think the other goal might have been an own goal.
Okay. And then, Herbert was that dangerous. I am sure he did some outlandish things that surprised them, right? And we were, and this was, I think, a sign of this team. They didn't mind somebody being in the limelight. Like we talk about Herbert, but I would not be surprised if we had a tape of this game. I would say, God, look at what Fritz did, right? look at the work rate of Glenn, and Bob Spielman winding up at center forward because Herbie was, playing with the right corner flag at that precise point. And I'm not even saying that was wrong that he was out there, but it was a team, and I don't think anybody, at least that's the way I like to remember it, that anybody was jealous of Herbie having a hat trick, right?
Yes, that was in Trenton. Played, I think, at Rider University. Actually, it was a very hard game. I thought they were a very good team, and we were behind, and we ended up beating them 2-1. And it was a real, very struggle, but it was actually a good preparation for us.
This game was actually on the campus of SIU, so across the state line, because that's Illinois, but we were playing the St. Louis representative. And I remember talking to John Spielman, because that team had a couple of cacciatoris. They were wings. They played at Edwardsville, I believe, and they were brothers, extremely quick, and they were wingers. And their thing was to get it wide and have the cacciatoris cross. And I said, John, if you need to be the marshal of your box. You're going to catch so many crosses that your arms might get tired.
Yeah, they were good. That was the game. I'm sure everybody will tell you that we could have very easily lost that game. They pretty much dominated the whole game. And again, the defense, Johnny Spielman had just a fantastic game. He played like a pro. And they made one mistake in their penalty box, and Milan converted the penalty kick.
John Spielman, our goalkeeper, in the second half, they came, it was 110 degrees in St. Louis that day, hot in the morning, and I remember it was so hot and humid. I mean, it was hard to play. We played the first half outstanding. The second half, they came to us. The whole game kind of shifted, and they just kind of pounded our goal. But John Spielman, our goalie, was outstanding, and he had some great saves, and we held off to beat them 1-0. But everybody gave 110% in effort in that game win.
And St. Louis was a real strong team. I mean, there you had to have a little bit luck, but with our knowledge, how we played the game, we beat St. Louis, and that was the big upset, as far as that goes. That game was probably stronger than Trenton, New Jersey.
I just talked about that with your dad, and I said, I can recall. And he goes, no. I says, I can recall. I says, Bob, I says, they rattled 5 off against their crossbar. He goes, nah, it was only a couple. I go, nah, it was 5. I mean, they dominated us in every aspect of the game. I mean, they had Donnie Ebert. Keel could have played in that game. And they just had other players that played in the North American Soccer League at that time that went on to play. So they were outstanding. And I believe we had a goal. Herbert got crunched in the penalty area, and Milan put it in. So we didn't have many chances, if I recall that game, because it was a tough game. But as you know, hey, you win 1-0, it's good enough, right?
There were 4 or 5 guys on there that later on I coached in sports festivals and on national teams and all of that, like Ty Keogh and Larry Hulser and guys who made a career in the NASL. And
the one mistake they made, we were all, without bragging, we were all pretty damn good in the air, and they kept crossing long balls. We just kept popping them out. And outsmarted them, I guess. We didn't outplay them, but we outsmarted them.
They just got it wide, and without any purpose or reason, they just started throwing balls in the box. And I think John was really good at that day, coming out and securing it. And John was very good in the air as well. He wasn't tall. Obviously, I'm way taller than he was, but I mean, he secured a lot of aerial balls in the box.
But we played most of the game in our half of the field. And interesting story there. Ty Keogh, who went on to play professionally and became a sportscaster, played in that game. And I happened to be doing I was doing the stats for the game he was televising up in Blaine in Minnesota. And me and another guy. So I introduced myself and I said, I just want to let you know that I played against you for the Bavarians in 1976. And boy, did he start throwing a tirade. He said, yeah, we absolutely hammered you guys, which they did, by the way. And I said, yeah, but you hammered us, but you played really stupid. He said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, you did play most of the game in our half of the field, but you kept pumping these balls up into the Bavarian penalty box. And I said, at what point in time should you have realized that there was nobody going to get the ball except Bob Gansler? Nobody. You couldn't compete with him. And we had a very solid defense that were difficult to penetrate. I said, but you played the whole game. You didn't come up with any different tactics. So we were fortunate to win that game 1-0, but let it be stated, we won the game 1-0.
They had more of the ball. They had more opportunities, but they were predictable ones.
And they had all the big guns. They were an awesome team. And the funniest moment of all was that we were playing at SIU Edwardsville, and all the spectators were sitting around, come on guys, and we're playing and playing and playing. And they started getting frustrated because we were playing smarter than. Make no mistake about it, they were on us like flies on what. But we played smarter than them. And then the second half, so at halftime, I don't know if these other guys remember this. At halftime, the guy takes his panel truck and he drives with a couple of empty garbage cans and he goes and fills them up with ice and beer, brings them back because they're going to celebrate, Then and all of a sudden, these people are getting out of their chairs and they're screaming, come on, Big Four, come on, Big Four. And they had Ty Keogh and some of these other guys, And we ended up beating them. And at the end, the guy pulls up, goes, hey, what was the score? And the people did tell us we played well, and then we started drinking their beer out of their garbage cans. It was excellent. Hardest game I ever played in my life. It was unbelievable.
I do think that they totally expected to win. They did have a good team. They had a lot of good young players from the colleges that are in the area. I know Edwardsville and Carbondale or whatever, St. Louis. Mm-hmm. They had a lot of good players, but it's who scores the most goals at the end of the game, and it just happened to be us.
And actually, St. Louis was much better than we were. They were just pounding our goal, and they had a lot of good players I recognized later on. Well, we came forward right pretty early in the game, and we got a penalty. We put it in, and the rest was defense. Yeah, but it was one of those games where they got the ball and they brought it up like 25 yards in front of the goal, and that's where we stood pretty tight. Joe and your dad and Tony, and it was like a brick wall back there. And they were shooting from 25 yards out, and that's what saved us.
But I do remember that game as we dodged a bullet there.
Yeah, we went up to Rochester. It wasn't that far from Oneonta, so Mucciardi and I just went directly from Oneonta. I think the Casabianca team was much better than them. We ended up beating, they got ahead of us. We ended up beating them 2-1.
In those days, the home team had to pay for part of the travel of the opposed, like they'd have to pay for half our flight and hotel or whatever. They said they couldn't swing it, so.
LA is a far way to drive or to walk, right?
Yeah, they forfeited. They just didn't want to pay the expenses for us to go there. And they most probably wouldn't have got many people to watch the game. And so therefore it would have been a big financial thing for them. So yeah, they forfeited the game to us. We were okay with that.
That's a little bit of an asterisk, if you like. But I think the strongest teams in the Amateur Cup were right in our area, right in the Midwest. And if you look at the record, it was Midwest teams that were winning that. We felt that after we were able to get by Illinois and Missouri, it was definitely doable. You know, I'm sure there's people who still say to this day, you guys were lucky that you didn't have to play the guys in California. Well, maybe they were lucky that they didn't play against us, because maybe they would have worse memories right now.
Well, saving them a good ass whooping.
Yes, team out of New York City, a lot of all foreign players, Italian team, but obviously they had other ethnic groups within the team. So a lot of the players we had played against, some played for like St. Francis, some for Albany State. It was a little rainy day, overcast. They were a good team. They got ahead of us. The ball was a little heavy and slipped through our goalkeeper, Joey Hankins, who's typically an excellent keeper. The ball slipped through his hands, and they were up 1-0. And the last 15 minutes, Bob, we just pushed like crazy. We went from a 4-3-3 ping pong, pushed me up right behind Artie and pushed Mooch into the midfield. Eventually, we scored a goal late in the game to send it into extra time. In the extra time, I think like a typical Italian team, once they got the lead, they were looking to play like the Catenaccio system. They packed it in, and they were looking to counterattack with their one center forward, Frankie Selke, or maybe get to penalty kicks. And they had their keeper was a high school kid, and he was terrific. So, but getting into the overtime, I think it was the second 15-minute overtime. A ball was shot. He kind of smothered it, and it rolled behind him, rolled kind of over the line, and then he reached out, grabbed it, and pulled it back. The lineman hesitated, then put the flag up for a goal, and then all hell broke loose. The Florida Milan fans, they just crossed the field going after the linesman, and it was mayhem. We finally, were able to go over and separate everyone. The West Windsor police came. And the referees said the only way they're going to continue the game is if the police stayed and could escort them to their cars after the game, even though that game was in Mercer County. They had a lot of fans. We finished the game, and we ended up, getting to you guys.
We knew on Thursday night because your dad told us everything he knew because of his connections. Glenn had played with, what was it, Glenn Meyernick, I think his name was, Mooch or something, the Pan American team or some. We heard, at the time and I don't really know him, that Billy Gazonis was a stud, college stud and all that stuff. And otherwise we didn't really know anything about them except what your dad told us at the meeting on Thursday.
We knew that Glenn Meyernick played for them, and Glenn Meyernick went on to play professional. And then he went on to work at the Federation, I think, with your dad. They called him Mooch. I think he played in the NASL. No, we didn't know much about them at all. From my perspective, my knowledge was looking at them warming up, as you do when you're warming up yourself. And they, in my perception, they looked younger than us. And they looked fitter than us, because you've got guys on the team like me by this time was in my late, I was 29. Yeah, 29. And you've got a Richie Schweinert, and your dad's older than me. And so you've got John Spielman is about my age in goal. We also had some young guys, but they had all young guys. And they all looked fit. And they looked like they were pretty handy with the ball. So I was thinking, well, we'll go. This is going to be a tough game here. So that was my knowledge. And I think.
Well, Bob, again, I really didn't care because I thought myself, I was invincible and I was just a player. I was hoping that your dad, the coach at that time, would get information. And obviously I knew Bob would, I knew he would talk to his contacts, get his information. And I believe in training leading up to everything, he got a great game plan. I think they, the extension, were much like St. Louis, where they had a lot of players that went on to play professionally after our game. Billy Gonzones was one. Mooch Meyernick, I mean, what a great soccer name, was the other one. And I knew I think Bob said they like to come down the middle with Mooch coming forward. And I think we took care of that a lot.
The only thing I knew they were good because I played with Glenn Meineke, who was the sweeper for that team. So I knew that they were a strong team. I didn't know anything else about the other individuals.
And I think, like I said, your dad had a scouting report. So, in training, your dad set us up in a way that we'd be successful.
Well, yeah, I don't know where I got a copy of their roster, but I saw some of the names, recognized some of the names, and I think your dad kind of went through, I don't know if he kind of, in a team meeting, mentioned some of the names, and, I know that Mooch Meyernick was a great player, went on to become a good coach. And of course you had the Barr brothers. One of them played. I think the other one didn't play. Yeah, we had heard, of course, you get that far, you're going to be playing a good team. So
we knew, I knew some of the players, but even more importantly, I knew coaches in the East that I could and would and did call and just give us an idea. So it was not a time that you studied film and all of this. I had there's three guys who made a name for themselves at Hardwick, won a national title, I think, in 76 or 77. Had the Herman winner as the best collegiate player in Glenn Meyernick. And I had run into them. I did some summer camps in the middle 70s out east, and they were there as counselors, and then the staff, the older guys would play against the younger guys. So I had competed against the Meyernicks and the Gazoneses and the Pilitanos. I also got some information on both of their wingers were of quality. Reese and even more so Marston on the other side. I knew of Matt Barr. But the information that we got about this Trenton team was, they're New Jersey kids who played a certain way, and you played out in New Jersey at some university. And so how they played. So it was, we talked about that. But once again, not to the extent that we need to fear that, but we just don't want to get surprised and all of that. So we share that with the team, but mainly was about how we were going to conquer, not how we were going to deny.
Okay, what we knew Glenn Ward was an outstanding player. You brought in Herbert Schweinhart, or I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. Ward was a really good player. You had the Spielman brothers. We knew they were very, very good players. Ping pong went through it, Bob, and I don't have all my notes in front of me. We knew you were a very good team. Obviously, we didn't have film of you guys. You know, from Mooch knowing what experience with your dad, we knew you were going to be as prepared or more prepared than any team we played, because, you know, your dad was a soccer, genius type individual within the country. And we were prepared because that fact that we knew we're not playing a German-oriented team, and the German teams typically are very organized, disciplined, have a lot of fight, keep possession. If they get ahead, they like to manage the game. So I think it was important that we got ahead of them. But like I said, Bob, our players are all over the country. So we never really, the last week we had some guys that were local. So we trained, maybe 5 or 6 of us trained together, but we literally never practiced. So it's not like I could say we went and we knew your keeper was weak, say on near post cross ball, so we could go and practice. We just kind of showed up for the games, and we just had a good understanding of how everyone played and how we should play, and that's how it was. But we weren't overconfident. Let me put it that way. We knew we were going to be in a fight, a real dog fight in that game.
The week before, we played Verdi on Bavarian field, on that putting green field, right? And it's like 5-0. Me and Herbert are jogging back, and I find the only hole in the field, and I sprain my ankle really bad. I mean, really bad. So for leading up to the championship game, your dad told me come to practice Tuesday, Thursday. Hal Henderson wrapped it all up, and he just wanted me to jog up the field, turn around and jog, just to get his philosophy, if I remember correctly, was because you're hurt or sick doesn't mean you lose your starting job. If you can go, you go. So when we got out there Sunday morning to Sunday, started warming up, my ankle gave out again. So I talked to Glenn, and Glenn said, I better talk to Bob, So I talked to your dad. He said, I think he whistled for Hal Henderson. He told me, he said, don't think about it. And then Hal taped my shoe and everything to my ankle and blah, blah, blah. And I started playing, and it felt great.
You know what, Bob? We stayed in the hotel. I remember we got to the hotel, and it was right across the highway. And we walked under the tunnel, and we saw a beautiful soccer field. You know what? That's all that mattered. We pride ourselves on being a real skillful team. And as you know, in amateur soccer, sometimes the fields aren't that very nice, especially in New Jersey. A lot of times we're playing on dirt and or with rocks. And we were excited. The field had a good size for us, and really nice grass. So that was it, Bob. We went, we saw the field, we did a little, exercise, stretching stuff, and went back to the hotel, and we had dinner and walked out under that tunnel the next day to play the final.
We said a few words beforehand, and it's about, play your game. It's about us. You remember what we said about them, and let's go and show them the best version of us, and it'll be doable.
I think we had a game before we played the Amateur Cup final, and we played I don't know if it was Britannica or some team that wasn't really that good, and we actually didn't play too good that game. But I think we won, but it was like not the way you wanted to play. Well, we got the idea talking to like Tony Kreidel and your dad, not as much, but like other people said, if you beat St. Louis, you're gonna beat Trenton also. And I wasn't sure. For me, it was like a big game, and I was fired up. I was ready to go. And it was a warm day, and there was a lot of people out there. The field was there were a lot of spectators, and game was on.
You know, my recollection that day is, you know, as you know, the locker room was in the beer house, which is now the Bavarian Inn, which is now the Bavarian Beer House, which isn't there anymore. The locker room isn't there. And yeah, you clanked across the blacktop, and we saw the people out there, and I think it just gave you a shot of adrenaline, because there's certainly, I mean, the stadium was packed. You know, if there was 1,500 to 2,000 people there, that was a lot for an amateur soccer game at that time in 1976. I mean, there was people there from, you know, every club that we've played against. And it just made you want to play harder. I remember it was a very, very, very hot day as well, you know, and I think it was very humid as well. So, but it was an exciting day for the Bavarian Soccer Club, and I think the state of Wisconsin.
I think we had people in our sports committee who manicured that field with scissors. So it was good. It was one of the things. Obviously, you like to play at home, but we knew we would have. Well, we couldn't use the field as an excuse if we made technical mistakes. It was good, and it was a nice crowd. I felt good about the surroundings and the setting.
Out of the dressing room, uniforms on. To me, it was another opportunity, another big highlight in my life.
That was great. Yeah, it's exciting. You know, Bob, we're young, and you walk out under the tunnel, and then you walk onto the field, especially at the Amateur Cup final, and, you know, there were fans everywhere. It was very exciting. It was a great atmosphere.
It was loud. It was supporting and all of that. I don't know the numbers. You know, it was just a nice setting, a comfortable setting. And having said that, we nevertheless got off on negligent on our negligent foot and allowed them, the Ligazonis, to score a goal from outside the box. I think it was after a corner that was cleared, and you know. We played man-to-man on corners. I know that, and Billy was very lonely. There was nobody around him, and we know who was supposed to be there, and you know he knew he was supposed to be there. And hey, mistakes occur, but I think the same mistake wasn't made again in that game.
Yeah, it was off a corner kick. The ball came out to me like at the top of the D. You know, and I took one touch, control it, and strike it. And I think the keeper was a little shielded. There was a lot of bodies there, and it went into the low to the corner on his right side. So we're up 1-0. You know, we're feeling good.
Came off of a corner, and I don't know if we didn't mark properly, or it came off of a deflection or something. But yeah, 11 minutes in, they scored.
When they scored first, I didn't panic, but got awfully concerned there.
I did not panic. I didn't think our team would panic. I thought actually we would come back even stronger, playing at home in front of the spectators. I think that it just kind of motivated us to, like, all right, it's time to step it up a notch and let's get going here. And that's kind of what I was thinking, or what would happen. I didn't have any doubt that we would not come back and win this game.
At that time, you know, you say, wow, that's not so good, but we just kept on playing. And you can tell after 10 minutes already if you know, if they're dominant, or I didn't think, I thought we could play with them easy, you know, and it showed afterwards.
They reacted with a vengeance. and I don't think it took more than 10, 15 minutes, 3 minutes. Oh my goodness. So, it was sort of like you punched me in the mouth kind of thing. So, and you knew Herbie was good for a goal, and that first goal is always counts double. That first goal counts double, and when it comes that quickly to theirs, I think their euphoria dissipated quite quickly, and we're saying, okay, it's even now, and we've got over an hour to go. Uh, they got theirs. Now we got to make sure we get at least two. So I think it stoked our confidence again, and we played our game.
But you know what I remember about that game that's funny, Bob? You guys had a much older, experienced team than us. But to start the game, I feel you guys were very nervous. And we're almost playing that way. And we were the ones, I think, typically you would say should be very nervous, but we were very calm, and we were, stroking the ball around, and we scored the goal. But after the goal, I think that changed. I think you guys, all of a sudden, I don't know what happened. Usually it works the other way. We feel more pressure, but I think you guys relaxed. And then I think like 3 minutes later, Herbert scores a goal, and it changes the whole complexion of the game.
But I know there was this big scramble in the box, I believe, and Herbert was there to pounce on it and put it in. I think that was very, very important to do that.
I'm not sure how it came. I just knew I had to put it in.
A nice goal. Herbert was such a great addition to that team. I don't know how long he'd been playing with us by the time we got to the Amateur Cup, but he had played with us a couple times before he, because he obviously came from Germany, and had visited and played as a guest with us a couple times, and he fit right in from the beginning. And being Richie's brother, he was just a talented soccer player. So when he did finally come back, I mean, he fit in so well with the team. But anyways, he scored a lot of nice goals. Herbie was a very good player.
It wasn't going to be a cakewalk. It wasn't going to be a 7-0 Minnesota. We knew that. So we felt good being even at half at home. We're okay.
And then at halftime, I had no feeling in my foot. It was taped up too tight. And about 10 minutes into the second half, something I never forget. I tackled this guy. The ball went off of him, and he stepped on my ankle. It was going out of bounds. And that's when I was just laying there. And then a pitcher got me laying on the sidelines with my leg. I just couldn't. I remember my dad at halftime walked by the locker room and said, "How are you feeling?" I said, "I don't know. I can't feel my foot." So I tried to go a little further, and then I felt like crying at the time. I just wanted to finish, but I couldn't. So that was my sort of build up to playing in the game. I always felt bad that I had to come out, but hey, what the heck, we still won. It's a team game.
So the second half it was our comfort level. We weren't going to give them anything, and we knew we were going to have an opportunity or two to get ours. We brought Richie in because Mark had an injury, and he was being outrun, by Marsden, who was their quickest player. So, Richie was not going to be outrun, and Richie had no problem going forward when it was appropriate.
You know what? The game, like I said, we started off really good and confident, but then I think Milwaukee, the Bavarians, started playing better. The goal, obviously gives them a boost, making them feel better. The game, it was hot, so I think, getting behind, whoever got the next goal was going to have a big advantage because, psychologically, it's much easier running when your team has the ball than when the other team has the ball. And so that next goal was going to be very important. I think that was going to be a turning point in the game.
Somebody gave me a through ball. It came out of the center midfield. I actually had like a breakaway, and the goalie came out, and I just shot it past him.
more than likely, I wish I had a film, more than likely, when Glenn pushed Herbie through, Glenn Meyernick was not in a sweeping kind of position. He was flat. He was in front of Matt Barr, who was covering Herbie, and Herbie was going to be quicker than Matt Barr, right? So the intuitive kind of stuff on Glenn's part, I think probably led to Herbie's, smile at the end of let me out dribble his goalkeeper.
I think that probably took the wind out of their sails. I think after that, but again, I'm kind of laying on the sidelines like this with a bag of ice on my leg, kind of trying to watch and all this other stuff. And, everybody's in front, you're all moving all over the place. But I think we pretty much took it to them then.
So yeah, and that Herbie got that goal, amazing goal, and that really that was it. That was the kickoff. We're going to keep on going, and we're going to win this game.
Yeah, and that was Herbie, and more than likely he was already grinning before he went around the goalkeeper. For sure, he was grinning afterwards, because Herbie could score with power, he could score with elegance, and he could score off the dribble, right? Herbie could score.
And I think once we got that lead, I think even with them pushing, I think we felt a little more that now we could actually really play our game, and control the game with our passing, our technique, and that's what we did.
I was on the right side. I got the ball and crossed it to Jerry, and he was like 16 yards out, I believe, and he headed it in. I think the goalie was out a little too far, and it was like a nice crisp cross, and he hit it like right on, and it went in.
Yeah, Jerry probably had a chance or two before that, and I don't know who put him in. Maybe his buddy Fritz. He and Fritz got along extremely well. Maybe Milan with his position from the other side. Maybe Bobby pushed him through. Maybe Herbie hit a cross before that. I think I remember one of those. And Jerry would need a few chances sometimes. But like I say, he would go get them. So just because he might not have scored one before that people said, oh my God, now late in the game, he says, I'll go to the well one more time. There was,
Yeah, I couldn't believe how open I was. I was all alone, and the goalie came out. It was a mistake, and I just had to head it over his outstretched hands and went into the goal. Of course, went crazy, started running, and before you knew it, your dad. I remember this. I don't know why I remember this. I remember it more vividly than the goal. But he came up and he gave me a kiss on the forehead. So just get that straight. But obviously, him being on defense took a lot of pressure off the defense. The last couple of minutes, he was able to enjoy himself a little more. So that worked out well.
Yeah, I remember that. You could see it in slow motion, how it unfolded. Herbie could beat the guy down the line. Zuba could really get up and just drop the perfect ball. Bam. I mean, lights out. It's over.
Yeah. You never know the game's over, obviously, till it's over. And 3-1 certainly at that time in the game puts the game away. 2-1, it's anybody's game, right?
Obviously, Trenton had to push forward and get the equalizer, and you got a speedster like Jerry Zuba up front and Glenn Ward. I mean, to get it, I'm sure we counted on him. Jerry did the business at the end.
You know what, Bob? Pink's philosophy was always, look, when we're down and we need a goal, it doesn't matter unless goals are going to count for the next round. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter if we lose 3-1 or 4-1. We need to score the second goal. So just like we did in the Ford and Milana game, Pink pushed me up. He pushed Mooch in the midfield. So now we're playing 3 in the back, 3v3 with no cover. So we knew the chance. Either we're going to score a goal and get back in this game, or you're going to score a goal and it's going to be over. And like you say. He scored a goal in the last, I think it was the 3 minutes to make it 3-1, and that was the game.
He put it all to rest with that third one.
let's face it, you're playing against a lot of guys that are going to be, they were Herman winners. I think Mooch Meinert was a Herman winner in NCAA. I think you got a lot of guys that played in NCAA championships. And matter of fact, I think they won NCAA. Billy Gazanis, I think they won the NCAA. So you had a lot of big time players there. And you got to think back, Bob. Remember in the state we won 9-1, 7-0, and then leading into everything 5-0, 4-0. John had a relatively easy time, so we had to make sure he kept us engaged as well, and that's what it is. I mean, not only were we good in the field, I mean, John did a great job keeping us in the two last final games of the year. The semifinal and state final. So, we did our business on the field, and John secured it for us in the goal.
Johnny kept us in a lot of games.
A collective team effort. But that's the thing, Bob, as well as anybody else. And Johnny was a fantastic keeper. You expect a couple good saves, and your dad would say this too. You expect a couple good saves from your keeper. You just have to. Maybe somebody slipped. Maybe the guy beat me. I don't know. But the funny thing is, you always expect your keeper to make a couple good saves. And
I think Kirby and Zuba was tearing up front pretty good. They were playing really well. Everybody hustled, and then typical Bavarians, we stayed back a little bit, and then we countered, and that's how we won. And Spielman had a tremendous game too. I remember Johnny; he saved quite a few. Yeah, but Johnny was the cat that day in the box. He was very good. And the whole defense played after it settled down. He played pretty well. We countered. We had speed up front. Zuba was good. Glenn was excellent in the midfield. I mean, everybody played terrific. It just came together. The stars lined up, you always say.
I thought we played very well. I thought, obviously in the beginning with 11 minutes, I thought, we're very nervous and tentative, and it's like soccer's a chess match. It's put in the right pieces, and starting to get some confidence in, and I think the key was to get that equalizer 3 minutes later. I mean, hadn't we gotten that equalizer 3 minutes later, I thought it could have been a long day for us. But getting that equalizer, I think it just made us more confident, and I thought we played very well,
I think I played okay. I played good, but so did everybody else. I think it was a total team effort.
Yeah, they came back. Like I said, they did not give up either. I mean, they wanted to win just as bad as we did, and I think starting from their back player and with Glenn Meineke and them pushing them. I remember him saying, "Let's go, push up," and so yeah, they pressed. They pressed on just like we tried to do too. But our defense was tough. And our goalie was outstanding. John Spielman was outstanding, and we just, we held him off, so we could counterattack.
One of the big things main things that Glenn had to do in that game defensively was to beware of Mooch Meinert, because he was a sweeper, and those days the sweeper went along to try to give you extra numbers at midfield. Well, Glenn needed to go forward, but he also needed to come back, and he needed to pick up anybody who was coming from the middle of their defense, and yet there were three other midfielders for them there as well. So Glenn had a lot of running to do, but we also had Milan pinching in on the other side, from the right side. So we didn't want to be caught too often with extra people, for them to have extra people at midfield, because what was their main thought? Back to finding the open man. Well, with Glenn's running and Milan's adjusting and Fritz tireless work, and maybe sometime every once in a while me stepping up in the midfield, that wasn't the case. That they had that comfort level of their how should we say, their preferred way of doing things was not there.
Because if I remember correctly, it was hotter than you know what out there too. You know.
Yeah, they were pretty strong. Pretty strong. And then he ran out of gas for some reason. I think it was a pretty warm day, very warm, and they just, for some reason they like ran out of gas. And especially after we scored the second goal, they didn't counter too much after that, as I recall it.
I mean, we were pushing the ball up. There were some other opportunities in that second half there. I think I hit the crossbar once, head ball, a couple of chances that everybody had. But yeah, that was we just kept pushing, and we were excited about it.
But they most probably had the better of the game in the early going until we were able to figure out what are we going to do here.
Fritz Weiler played good too in a bit. Yeah, hey, the whole team played excellent. They knew what they're fighting for. This is the final. They knew. Defense was good after they settled down.
And then once we figured it out, the game changed, in my opinion. Yeah. So I think that maturity that we had on the team is what enabled us to change the game. I don't think they had as much experience as we had. And because we played in some big games, certainly not a game as big as that, but we played in a lot of big games. I think that's what came through for us on that particular day.
I think when you win, you play good. Yeah, it was a warm day, so it was. I remember being very exhausted after the game.
It took us a bit of time because we didn't know them to come to grips with their team, because they were, I would say they were fitter, quicker, faster, but not as smart in the game. And I think that's where we were able to turn the tables on them.
Bob, I was surprised that, and I don't know if it tactically, I don't want to say they were conceding midfield. I was getting the ball, a lot of the ball, more than I thought I would get. And I think the first 2/3 of the field, it was very easy for us. What I think in the last third, I think you guys were good. And then as the game went on, you got better. Your outside backs, I think, all of a sudden did a great job of not letting our wingers turning. And also, I think as a group collectively, a lot of times in the last third, you guys had a lot of numbers around the ball. So even though I was still getting a lot of the ball, I wasn't getting a lot of choices in that last third where I could play the ball.
If you look at all the photos that you've got, you'll see that the Bavarians had a lot of players around the ball in virtually every photo, more so than the Trenton team. So we were diligent in defending and taking away space and not allowing them to do too much. I think we were also able to transition very well. When you've got a midfield like we had and a forward line like we had that could do a lot of damage, not only, number one, could they possess the ball, but they could transition into offense very quickly and create some damage. When you've got a solid back four and a solid goalie, and now you've got a very creative midfield that's able to work box to box, by the way. Bobby Spearman on the left, Fritz on the right. If Glenn Ward was tucking in and playing a bit withdrawn, or Herbert in there, that's where we became difficult to penetrate. So yeah, I would say we just grew in confidence as the game went on because we knew how they played. And it wasn't working for them. They got an early goal, but it wasn't, even though they had a lot of the play, it wasn't working for them. And I think they couldn't come to grips with our defense and our midfield. And I think they also couldn't come to grips with our offense either. So I think it was a little bit of easier going in the second half for us.
our front players were very talented, and they had a disappointing game up front, the three of them. And I think that hurt us. Matt Barr had a challenge with Herbert, who's a great player. But I think if our front players played their typical game, Bob, I think the game might have a different outcome, or for sure, because they're very talented. But you know what? They were shut down. You really shut us down. Like I said, whether it was just outstanding 1v1 defending or collective. And I think a lot of it had to do with collectively. Like you said, a lot of the pictures showed the Milwaukee Bavarians, 2 or 3 players around the player with the ball. So, hats off to that. It was probably your dad's tactics.
They may have won the first half, but I don't think they had that kind of run in the second half. I think it was a lot of the Bavarians in the second half.
It was very disappointing, but like I say, Bob, on that day, I believe that you guys deserved to win. You were the better team.
I thought it was a great game for everybody to see. I thought it was an exciting game, as you mentioned, John making a lot of saves. I think we put some pressure on them as well, so it wasn't a one-sided game. But in my opinion, the better team won in the end. I mean, I could be a little biased, but your dad did a fantastic job of putting us in the right positions, giving us a game plan that we followed.
I remember that the Midwest commissioner or something that was presenting us a trophy. I think his name was last name was Ehlers. He was from the Milwaukee Kickers, and we were just whooping and hollering, yelling, everything, and he was getting kind of mad because he couldn't present us with the trophy because everybody was jumping up and down and drinking champagne, and they said sooner or later you got to get the trophy, don't you? We're like, oh yeah, I suppose.
Right. Yeah, I just remember being, I don't know, I was a little emotionally drained, a little physically drained, left everything out on the field. But you know what, where we spent a lot of time was in that little locker room, our shower room, the shower facility. And I remember putting away quite a bit of Jägermeister, and I don't know, they'd always fill up the cups with Manhattans. And of course there was beer flowing. It was a lot of fun, but it was just a lot of fun, just laying back and kind of soaking it all in. You know how that is. It was great. But yeah, I remember that. I remember the champagne flying. So that was great.
I think I dropped about 10 pounds that day because I was just, I was the left interior at that time, and just running up and down in the heat, and I was just so ecstatic. And I think there was one picture of me drinking a bottle of champagne, and I remember that I was just so happy and excited, and not only for myself but for the team, Bavarian Soccer Club, and more importantly, your dad. He worked hard to make things happen for us. I remember a lot of people coming out on the field. I remember our victory lap where we passed the trophy around. People coming up to you and congratulating you from every club and any club in the state. And, it seemed very chaotic at that time, but yet it seemed very exciting. I mean, I couldn't have been prouder to be a Bavarian that day, and all that hard work we put into it, and the thrill of every game we played, and the camaraderie. I mean, and then going into the Ratskeller, as you know, the Ratskeller was one of the places that, it's some great memories for a lot of victory parties in there. And the 76 championship Amateur Cup championship game was no different. I mean, I remember that Ratskeller being packed, and I don't recall how I got home or who drove me home, but it was a fun time.
Obviously, it was, you get to that point where you say national. It was not a local tournament. It's a national tournament. And that was the thing that really started to sink in and it was a great feeling. You know, it was a great feeling, and I knew things were really different when I think the Journal Sentinel had a reporter started asking me a bunch of questions, and while he's asking me questions, a lot of the younger kids in the Bantams or whatever, the Bavarian soccer kids, they're asking me for my autograph. It's like, okay, something's wrong with this picture. I've never had that done before. So yeah, that's when you start realizing that it was kind of a great experience, a unique experience that doesn't happen all the time.
Yes, yes, and that's us. That was our team. That's what kind of we always get celebrated. You know, we always played, did our thing, and grabbed the beer on the sidelines after if it was there available. But yeah, we didn't wait because that was a big moment in everybody's life. All the players and the team and the clubhouse for the Bavarians, first time ever to win a national championship like that, and everybody was just just like, so much excited about it and happy, and we showed it in our celebration and like we always did with not only with the players but even with the fans. That's how we were.
It was pretty wild. It was pretty wild. Everybody was happy. You know, it was emotional. Well, yeah, first time ever a state of Wisconsin won the Amateur Cup. That's pretty neat. A nice thing to have on your record as a club.
I most probably started screaming at somebody, I don't know, or hugging somebody, maybe your dad, I don't know. I remember us running around the field because we got the photographs of it.
Of course, the spectators are on your side and everybody congratulating you and so on, and it's a nice feeling, it's an accomplishment, and you feel the spectators are part of the team, because they're always with you, and you see them every Sunday when there's a game and so on, and you become all friends. So it's a nice feeling. In order to get to that particular moment, there's a lot of work that you got to do. There was a lot of things that we had to do, to play, to win, to practice, to do everything just to get to that particular moment.
You know what, Bob, what I remember, and I recently wrote a book, Bob, and I talk about the Amateur Cup final in the book. And for me, winning championships is why I played soccer. And, in Cartwick, my junior year, we ended up losing in the final. My freshman year in the semifinals, my junior year in the semifinals, I'm devastated. Then, we get to the Amateur Cup finals. But I had a lot of your fans come up to me and tell me they really enjoyed watching me play, and actually a lot of them said you were the best player on the field, which was a consolation momentarily before I got through that tunnel, and then my eyes filled up with tears because the reality that we lost again.
I jumped up. I guess I was happy to win the Amateur Cup. Yeah, we took a victory lap, and I know I was last.
And it's like you can see, and you mentioned it earlier, everybody in the photograph is looking up at this trophy, which was a fantastic photograph to see, that how excited everybody was to see that. I think once we got the trophy, we went on a run around the field, and there's a shot of me like being about 15 yards away from the rest of the team, and I don't know how that came about because I normally would take the shortest route anywhere, but here I'm running on the outside of the field. But when we got in and we showered and changed, the Rathskeller became the nerve center, if you will, for the celebrations. And I'm sure Willie was there with his Paul Revere bowl that had all kinds of stuff in it.
Big celebration, big time. A lot of, let's see, those like gold, well, they're trophies, the bowls. Willie would pass on these gold bowls, and it was like Manhattans in there. Who drinks Manhattans, you know? But they were passing around the stuff, and I still, greatest day in soccer of my life. It was just the best. John Spielman and I were taught. John Spielman brought it up, I believe. He says, "I'm going to get a magic marker. We're signing that wall." And we're like, "Yeah, whatever, you know." And so actually, I'm the one that wrote amateur on there because John didn't know how to spell it. He spelled it backwards. I said, "No, it's E-U-R, not U-E-R." So then it was kind of messed up a little bit. It was, oh my God, Bob, I can't believe you're bringing that up. Yeah, and then it just went off. Everybody's give me that, you know, everybody's signing the wall.
The signing of the wall took place that night. And then before you know it, everybody went up and signed their name on the wall. And
Yeah, we signed the wall.
that was iconic. That's a great word for it. And it was there for
20, 30 years till the new club owners took over. How poor our penmanship was.
I do. I signed, I think, and I don't know why, because I have no middle initial, but I remember signing it, Jerome L. Zuba. And I know they encased it, glass encased it, because a few times when I did stop there with family or friends, I'd always take them down to the Rathskeller and show them. Because years later, a lot of guys didn't even know that I played soccer. I'm not kidding, because it wasn't a big deal back then. You know, it's not as big as it is now, but anyways, I had to prove to them that I played for the Bavarians. So went down there and showed them, and it made a difference. It left an impression. So, but I do remember signing that wall right by the foosball table.
I mean, that Ratskeller, that was, you know, we kidded, and to your mother's chagrin and the other ladies who were married to my teammates, to those ladies' chagrin, it was our second home, and we stayed sometimes an hour or two too late. But to be able to put that up there, and then later on they put a picture or two up of that day, yeah, it was special.
Yep, we signed the wall, and as you know, they redid that, and now we have a big picture frame in there. So I think it moved the wall. We signed it in the back, and then it moved to the front. And now there's great memories of a big collage of pictures with everybody's signature on that. So somehow they brought it on from the wall to a sheet of paper. So there's still a lot of good memories of that in the Rathskeller.
Yeah, I remember signing the wall there in the Rathskeller down there. Yeah, we loved it down there, and yeah, that was a great moment too. It was a good feeling to write that and to experience that.
Walk in there, and then, you know, it's just like you look up and you see your name on the wall. I mean, my parents didn't know anything about soccer, but they come to Bavarian for a fish fry once in a while, go down to Roscoe and have a beer, and my mom would say, "Hey, that's my son right there. His name's right there on the wall." Like, you know, it was really cool.
Whenever we went back into that Rathskeller, as you know, we had trophies all around the top, and it was nice when visiting teams would come in there to drink. It was like, well, you're in a holy place here, and especially with all the signatures on the wall. It would have been nice to get some of the people who had been a big part of the club having their names on it, but where would you have stopped?
It was a goal we set for our whole lives. You know, winning state championship. We always won that, but winning the national championship, that was big. The whole United States, you got to figure that out. We're the top amateur team in the United States. That's a great goal to accomplish. You know, fish for us amateurs. You know, we started from little on. Now that was top thing in our lives back then. You know,
What a great privilege for me to be the captain lifting up the Amateur Cup, and it's the first one the club's ever won. Very, very proud. But very proud because for the club, number one, and the team. And my thoughts at that time was there was a lot of people had put a lot of work into that club. You know, the George Bowers and the Joe Moose Millers and the Willie Preebies and Paul Ada and all of these people that, and I'm sure I'm missing tons of people out here, Willie Tiemann, all of these people were so happy that we won that National Cup.
Well, obviously, this was the big one. We had some good games, good tournaments.
Just the joy, you know, what I said before. I felt good for the people that we mentioned before that manicured that field, right? The Paul Aders and Joe Peschels and Walter Hobbles and the ladies that cooked our schnitzel one more time in the clubhouse, right? Mary Ader was there, Mrs. Mosmiller, all Johnny Hartenberger, you know, and Tony Kreidel was our president, Vice President Gun Barra. I felt good for all of those people because, you know, we won that day. But as I said before, a lot of things were done as far as the team is concerned and getting us prepared for that day were done in 75. A lot of things were done in the 60s. A lot of those young guys who are now on this team were coached by guys who I played with in the 60s. And it was, you know, the tradition continues. We said then, not just the shirt that I got on, but we said that then already. And that was the beauty of that club.
Well, I think the national championship is certainly the top of the all the trophies that we've won. I asked you, and you sent them to me, how many state championships we had. I didn't know, but when I looked at it, I went, wow, I couldn't believe it. How many state championships we had starting in the 60s and then through my time in the 70s. And they're very meaningful, and it's why you play the game, right? It's certainly fun, but you play to win. But they don't measure up to the national championship, not at all.
It was satisfying, is what it was, and you know, I had a double slice. You know, I was there as a player, and I was there as the coach. To put your name up there on a cup that is of national importance, I think, hey, it's okay. It's okay to win.
Now, why did I do all of this? Well, I've been following the Bavarian Soccer Club for as long as I can remember. In 1976, I was early into my career on the Glendale Bavarian Pee Wee team. I was there that day. After the final whistle blew, I eventually ran to my dad and jumped in his arms. Champagne was spraying and both of us got hit in the eyes. It hurt, but we recovered. It was a great day for my dad, for me, and for the Bavarian Soccer Club.